at that point anyway, because they know that Carr is not going to be their long-term answer. He's only signed for one more year anyway. So if they like Shedeur Sanders at 9, sure, they have a chance to take him, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's because they're giving up on Carr for this
That's
year.
where Mel mocked him last week. Mel mocked Shedeur Sanders 9 to New Orleans. What do you think, Schrager?
Look, I spent the weekend on the couch texting everyone in the NFL while watching the Masters and Peppa Pig with my 2-year-old, and I will tell you that this is a situation where I think the media might look at Shedeur Sanders in one way, and the teams might be evaluating him a little bit of a different way. And with 10 days left in the draft, I think it's fair to just level set expectations here. I don't have a team that is saying, oh my gosh, Shedeur Sanders, like we love Shedeur Sanders. A nice prospect. I personally don't have this top 3 hype. And again, to what Dan just said, there's a chance this could happen. He could go to the Browns 2. He could go to the Giants 3. They need quarterbacks. But just trying to level set expectations here, I don't know if Shedeur Sanders has looked the same way as some of these mock drafts are looking at him and how we're talking about him in the media.
To be clear, it would surprise you. Let's sort of narrow it down to that. If he were to go 2 or 3, you would be surprised.
10 days out, I would be very surprised if either of those teams took them with the 2nd or 3rd.
9 feels more?
9 feels more likely, but that would be a surprise for me as well. I'm not putting him there yet in ink either.
Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah, to Peter's point, I think the reason why he's not being mocked very high is because of his arm strength. But if you look at New Orleans, like that's a place that their most successful run was without a great deal of arm strength. So if there is an organization that is not afraid of taking a risk on a player who doesn't have the big traits that everyone gets excited about, maybe it's the Saints.
And the other piece of this that then comes into it is Pittsburgh. And we're going to have Orlovsky a little bit later who will bring this up. But we know the Steelers, they're still sitting around waiting for Aaron Rodgers. They don't know. Candidly, at this moment, it feels like they don't know exactly what is going to happen here. How does that factor into all of this?
Shedeur Sanders visited the Pittsburgh Steelers late last week. I've talked to people there. It sounds like it was a good visit. They feel positive about him. Will he fall to them at 21? Will he drop to a point where they can make a small trade up to go get him if he's their guy? Remember, the Steelers do not have a second-round pick. They already traded it for DK Metcalf. So they may be the team that does have to reach a little bit if they want to get their quarterback answer, if you don't want to wait until the 3rd round. So that's worth watching. And then if they don't trade up, if they're at 21, and then let's say the Browns or the Giants do like him, right? But they just didn't like him at 2 or 3. They didn't like him better than Travis Hunter. Then maybe that's a team, one of those teams at the top of the 2nd round could come up and try and jump the Steelers to get him. That may be it. But to Peter's point, you're not hearing a lot of clamoring for the guy. Maybe once he's in the teens and 20s, right. But at the very, very top.
I would also add, and this is, he's going to meet with the Raiders this week too, and they're at the 6th spot. They just signed Geno, and I don't think they're playing with Geno Smith as a 1-year deal with Geno Smith. So you're looking at a player who everyone says very positive things, and to Dominique's point, this guy is a great operator of the football. He is a great leader, all that stuff. He just doesn't have those wow intangibles or tangibles where everyone's like, I need this person running my franchise.
All right, I have to leave it there for the moment in the interest of time. There's a lot more to be said about this, a lot more to be uncovered, and we will as we go. The draft is
at Lambeau Field on ESPN, with Cam Ward widely expected to be the #1 pick to the Titans. Then the draft starts really at number 2, where our Mel Kiper Jr. projects Travis Hunter to go to the Browns. Mel doesn't have another QB coming off the board until pick number 9, with the Saints taking Shedeur Sanders. Speaking of, NFL insider Dan Graziano joining us for more. And Grozfather, there are still some uncertain notes here ahead of this draft. Let's run through some of that in your Graziano notes beginning in New Orleans. What can you tell us?
There's a report, Randy, at the end of last week about Derek Carr and a shoulder injury that could threaten his availability for the 2025 season. So there's a lot of mystery around Derek Carr's situation that has led some people to wonder if it's more likely that Shedeur Sanders or some quarterback could be the Saints' pick at number 9. Fact of the matter is, if the Saints like Shedeur Sanders enough to take him at 9, they might have been thinking that way anyway, with Carr only under contract for 1 more year. But it does lend an air of intrigue to this 10 days ahead of time. If Shedeur Sanders does not go at 9, if he's still available at 10 or in the teens, watch out for the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21 for potential to move up. They had him in for a visit late last week. They are still waiting on an answer from Aaron Rodgers, to whom they've had an offer out for some time, but they know that Aaron Rodgers is not going to be the long-term answer at quarterback, even if he does sign there. So the Steelers could be in the mix for a quarterback at 21. Remember, they don't have a second-round pick. They traded it for DK Metcalf. And then the Giants, if the Browns were to take Abdul Carter, the Giants might take Travis Hunter. The fact is the Giants need a long-term answer at quarterback as well, but they have the second pick in the second round, and if they decide to pass on a quarterback up top at the top of the first round, they could be in the mix for someone like Louisville's Tyler Shuck, who you saw there, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, that next group of quarterbacks, assuming Cam Ward has gone one and Shedeur Sanders is gone by the time the Giants pick again.
Tyler Shuck has been trending upward in a nice way for the kid out of Louisville. That is Dan Graziano with very latest for us.
Dan Graziano is here, always kind enough to join us.
Graz, we saw Rory McIlroy complete the career Grand Slam. That was awesome yesterday.
Unbelievable. Like, you went into yesterday with high hopes, like, for the matchup,
man.
and what you got was even better. Like, you got Rory versus Rory, like, falling apart 3 times and pulling it out. It was sensational.
Then I'm asking him the poll question. Ask him the poll question.
No, I'm not going to ask him the poll question. I got another question.
Go ahead.
What's the NFL equivalent to what Rory McIlroy accomplished yesterday?
Oh, man, that's a good question. What's the NFL equivalent?
Like, going 10 years, decades since winning a major, overcoming all of those heartbreaking losses.
It's like Dick Vermeil coming back and winning the Super Bowl with the Rams or something like that. Like, it's like, I don't know. That's a good one. Stafford finally winning with the Rams.
Oh,
maybe
that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. After all those years in Detroit.
Well, how long was it in between Brady's championships? Didn't he have a big gap in there?
Yeah, but I mean,
fairly big. Yeah.
He already had 3.
I feel like he was already. Brady was already Tiger. You know what I mean? Like, it almost felt like even without the extra titles after the 3.
But this isn't like Rory's first win. He completed the career Grand Slam, which puts him on a different tier.
Yeah.
The poll question that they're laughing at me about.
Peyton Manning winning his second one right before he finished up. Yeah, something like that.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good.
I think this is a good poll question.
Okay.
Rory had a good final round or a bad final round?
It wasn't a great one. That's for sure. I mean, 2 double bogeys, right? Isn't he the first one ever to win the Masters with 4 double bogeys?
Correct.
Look at this. Mark and company put it on television. That must be good.
He missed 3 putts in the last 4 holes that could have basically won the. Yeah, I would say it was a bad final round, and then he had a great playoff hole. Yeah.
Nice.
That's
a great way to frame it.
Good cop-out, but great answer. Graz, the big NFL story over the weekend was Derek Carr rumor. I don't know what's going on. What do you know about what's happening with Derek Carr?
There was a report on Friday, NFL Network reporting that he has a shoulder injury situation that could threaten his availability for the 2025 season.
Okay.
There's been nothing further from anyone. Like, it's been very difficult to get information on this. So what we know is there's a weird situation between Derek Carr and the Saints. So they went to him about a pay cut early in the offseason. He refused. And instead of releasing him, which may have been his preference, right? Because then you can go sign with whoever you want. They restructured his contract, so he's pretty much stuck there. Like, they can't really even trade him because it would cost them too much against the cap to do so. So now there's an injury situation. So a number of different things have piled up this offseason between Derek Carr and the Saints to the point where there's a question about what, if anything, they're going to get from him this year. So now heading into the draft, they're picking 9th. Everybody wants to see, well, what does that mean for the draft? Fact of the matter is the Saints should have been at least thinking about quarterback early in this year's draft regardless, because Carr's only going to be there 1 more year max. So at this point, we don't know. Their offseason workout program, I think, starts today. So obviously I don't expect that he'll be a part of it, but they're going to get a lot of questions about it. Maybe we'll have some more clarity in the next couple days.
I mean, the Saints are minus 145 when it comes to betting odds to take a quarterback, so heavy favorites there.
Yeah.
Curious to know what that does for the other teams that are going to be looking for quarterbacks in this year's class. We talked about the New York Giants, the Cleveland Browns, maybe not taking a quarterback at 2 and 3 respectively, but trying to trade back up into the first round to get a guy. The Pittsburgh Steelers are sitting there at 21 overall. What does it mean for them now with this Derek Carr news about trying to get the second or third quarterback off the board?
Yeah, again, I don't know. Like, if the Saints like Shedeur Sanders as their franchise quarterback of the future, then they should have been taking him anyway, like regardless of any Derek Carr injury news. So that's the question. Do they now force a pick at number 9 overall because Carr is a question mark? I would say probably not. They should probably be approaching it the same way they would have anyway. And then the mission is to get Carr to come play for them and then, maybe use the 9 pick to make yourself a better team, give him a better chance to succeed this year. So then you have the Steelers at 21. Like, who else in that range is going to be looking quarterback? Is Seattle at 18 going to be thinking about somebody for the long term because Sam Darnold's maybe on like a year-to-year? If you're the Giants or the Browns and you didn't take a quarterback at 3 or 2, do you now need to trade up ahead of Pittsburgh to get your quarterback because they don't have a second-round pick, and they may be the team that has to force one at 21. So if the second quarterback goes at 9, that changes the calculus, I think, a little bit. If you perceive a difference between 2 and 3, right? If you have Shedeur Sanders lumped with Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck and all these other guys, then you don't really care who goes at 9 because you have the same pool. But if you have him separate from that group and he starts falling into the teens and 20s, that may be where you see somebody try and trade up.
Dan, Evan brought this up earlier in the show. Could we see maybe Aaron Rodgers now being connected to New Orleans in any way, shape, or form because he still hasn't signed? He's still out there.
Yeah, possible. But I think the one thing that gives me pause there is, you hate to say this about a team in April when everyone's got hope, but I don't think the Saints look like the team, if you're Aaron Rodgers, is like, that's my shot to win a title before I'm done, right at age 41. Like, he needs to go somewhere where they has a real sort of obvious chance of winning. I think that's why Pittsburgh appeals, because they're always kind of in the mix, whereas the Saints won 5 games last year and maybe in a situation where they're actually worse.
We're talking with Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL reporter here on